Well, tomorrow it's Tim Walz and JD Vance. They will go head-to-head in the only scheduled vice presidential debate before the American election. So how is this debate going to play out? And could it actually have a significant impact on the result next month? Well, joining me live now is White House Chief of Staff, former White House Chief of Staff, I should say, and now Bondi Partners consultant Mick Mulvaney. Mick, great to see you. JD Vance didn't get off to a very great start when he was announced as the VP to Trump. Is there a lot more riding on this debate for him?
No, probably not. JD is actually, he did stumble out of the gate. There's no question about it. But he has done some really difficult interviews ever since. He's been on the left-leaning press on a regular basis, taking tough questions. Whether or not you thought he answered them well probably depends on who you're voting for. Tim Walz, on the other hand, who by all accounts was hired by the Harris campaign or named as the vice presidential candidate because he is so good in interviews, hasn't done any of those hard-hitting events. So there's a really good chance that he's going to be hearing some of these tough questions for the first time. There's probably more downside risk to Tim Walz than there's to JD Vance. Everyone's expecting JD Vance to screw up and say something about childless cat ladies. But that's already built into the numbers. Tim Walz is an unknown. And if he fares well tomorrow night, that's fine. If he fares poorly, it actually might hurt the Harris campaign.
Yeah, right. What do you think? You know, the rural vote is really important. That's why Walz, is Kamala's 2IC. Who appeals to the rural voters in those swing states that matter the most?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Donald Trump is winning the rural parts of this country, that Kamala Harris would win in the cities, Trump would win in the rural areas, farmlands, mountains, et cetera, and that they'd fight over the suburbs. Listen, I know Tim Walz, I know both these guys, but Tim Walz shared the locker next to me for 6 years. He's a nice guy. I think he'll come across as a nice guy. I just don't know if anybody who's undecided, Laura, is going to be making up their minds based upon a vice presidential debate when they can go look at the top of the ticket to make up their mind. Yeah,
right. So it's a bit of a sideshow. Do you think they'll keep it nice?
You know, there's some press here saying it's going to get really nasty. These are really nice guys. So I just don't see them yelling and screaming. I see them defending themselves and so forth.
Yeah.
If anybody's liable to lose his temper, probably a little bit more JD Vance than Tim Walz, but that's only a marginal difference. I do not expect any fireworks here tomorrow. These are two nice Midwestern Americans who are going to go and do their job and get back on the campaign trail.
Nice Midwestern, mild-mannered, and we expect that tomorrow. Maybe a few fireworks, I don't know. But look, it was really interesting to see Republicans publicly, like Lindsey Graham, call on Donald Trump to keep it nice after he called Kamala mentally impaired, as well as Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's not the only, that's the 724th time that an elected Republican has given Donald Trump advice on staying on message and not sort of dropping down into personal attacks. He's not going to listen. The man is almost 80 years old. He's going to, it's very difficult to teach an old dog new tricks. He's going to do his thing and hope that it's enough. He does not listen to Lindsey Graham when it comes to campaign strategy. He does not listen to me when it comes to campaign strategy. He is his own campaign manager. And if he wants to get nasty in the last 4 or 5 weeks and call Kamala Harris a bunch of names, he's going to do it. I think it's a bad course of action, but he stopped listening to me a long time ago.
Well, you're a damn good strategist, Mick Mulvaney. What would you be telling him right now if he would listen?
The message was supposed to be really simple. I was president for 4 years. She's been president for almost 4 years. Which of those 4 years treated you better? Period. End of story. That's the test. That was what Ronald Reagan did to Walter Mondale. That's exactly right. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? It's how Ronald Reagan crushed Jimmy Carter and then crushed Walter Mondale a couple of years later. People vote their pocketbooks for the most part in this country. And if Donald Trump could remind them how good things were under his first term, he's got a really, really good chance. Why he's spending his time calling his opponent mentally impaired when she's probably not. I guess if you said it about Joe Biden, it's probably a legitimate conversation to have. But to say it about Kamala Harris, I just think is a distraction.
Yeah, certainly. Well, let me quickly ask you, and it feeds into this because it's the economic debate right at the centre of this, cost of living. And there's some strikes going on at some pretty major ports around America at the moment. Is that going to have an effect?
Yeah, we all talk in this business about an October surprise. What happens in the month in the run up to the election that can change the course of the election very dramatically? This is something very strange because it's not really in the control of either party. It's not a scandal. There is a dock strike, a dock worker strike set to start in about 4 hours in this country. It will close down all of the ports on the eastern seaboard from Boston all the way down to New Orleans and into Texas. It could have dramatic impacts on the economy as we go into the Christmas shopping season. Most of the goods that are going on retailer shelves for Christmas have already been ordered and are in transit. If they can't show up, you could see a dramatic spike in inflation. Maybe it's short term, who knows, right before the election. And that's certainly not going to help the party in power. So we'll watch it very, very closely here in the next couple of days. If it's a strike for a couple of days, Laura, no big deal. People will move on. But if it goes out a week or two and gets closer to that election day, could actually have that October surprise that so many people talk about.
Yeah, a couple of October surprises these days, I reckon. We'll see you soon, Mick. Great to see you as always. We look forward to that debate tomorrow.